Many people find it hard to accept that in the entire infinite universe, life exists only on Earth. Yet, at the same time, there are those who dismiss any information about the existence of extraterrestrial races. In this video, I will introduce you to real cases of communication with aliens, as well as beings who came to Earth from other worlds and did not hide this fact. Enjoy the viewing. The story that happened to Elizabeth Clara resembles the plot of a science fiction movie, but, as the woman herself claims, it's all true. Elizabeth's interest in aliens began at the age of 7, after she and her sister saw a strange glowing object in the night sky. Of course, when she was a child, there was practically no information about UFOs. Therefore, she only began studying extraterrestrial civilizations in the 1950s. In 1955, Elizabeth began working in intelligence and was sent to investigate a strange hill in the outskirts of Johannesburg. According to local residents, they often noticed suspicious lights on the hill. When Elizabeth arrived at the hill, she saw a spacecraft that looked like a rotating disc with a stationary dome in the center. Of course, the woman immediately realized that she was fortunate enough to encounter aliens. After this incident, Elizabeth began to feel a telepathic connection with a being named Akon. Akon told the woman that he was a scientist from the planet Meton. Elizabeth communicated telepathically with her friend for a year, and one day he invited her to visit his planet. Elizabeth, of course, agreed. Amazingly, the woman was lucky enough to visit the planet Meton 3 times. The last time she spent an extended period there, as she was expecting a child by an alien named Akon. When she gave birth to a hybrid, she was returned back to Earth. Elizabeth's stories were subjected to criticism and ridicule, but the woman continues to claim that all this happened to her in reality. Simon Parkes is a member of the Whitby Town Council in North Yorkshire. Despite his high position, he regularly maintains contact with aliens of various races, particularly with reptilians and mantis beings. In an interview with the British newspaper, The Northern Echo, Simon shared shocking information about his contacts with extraterrestrial beings. According to him, he was adopted by an alien at the age of 6 months. This creature was almost 3 meters tall and had 8 long fingers on its hands. Since then, aliens have constantly maintained communication with him. Parkes developed a special connection with the mantis race, as they are more friendly towards humans than the reptilians. However, both these races are observing our planet to eventually populate it with hybrids. Astonishingly, Simon also told journalists that he had an intimate relationship with one of the alien females. As a result of this love, the alien woman gave birth to a son, whom they named Zarka. Simon's interest in extraterrestrial beings did not arise by chance. His mother worked for British security services and was involved in collecting data on UFOs. Perhaps her stories influenced her son's imagination, but who knows, maybe Simon's stories are not fiction after all. George Adamsky, a Polish immigrant living in the USA, gained enormous worldwide popularity in the 1950s. The reason for this was his open declaration of contact with extraterrestrials, as well as a series of UFO photographs. According to George, on November 20th, 1952, while relaxing in the Mojave Desert in California, he and his friends noticed a silver cigar-shaped object in the sky, being pursued by fighter jets. He even managed to take a picture of it, which he provided as evidence of his story. Near the UFO, George encountered an alien who had shoulder-length blonde hair and tanned skin. Overall, he looked almost like a regular human. This being began to communicate telepathically with George. The mysterious stranger explained that he had come from Venus to ensure that the inhabitants of our planet were not in danger. The alien was concerned about the presence of nuclear weapons capable of destroying the beautiful planet called Earth. Later, George had many more contacts with this being. Thanks to this communication, he was able to visit many planets in our solar system and see things that other people had not seen. Although George Adamsky's story was supported by a series of photographs, it was subjected to severe criticism in the early 1960s. Skeptics believe that the man photographed not spaceships and planets, but ordinary household items with blurred focus. If you think that stories of anomalous phenomena and contact with aliens are modern fabrications, you are mistaken. In the past, people also experienced unexplainable situations. A prime example is the story of Gil Perez. Gil Perez was a Filipino soldier. On October 24, 1593, he was assigned as one of the guards at the governor's palace in Manila. That day, elections were being held for a new governor after the previous governor, Gomez Perez Dasmariñas, had been killed by Chinese pirates. Initially, the soldier was performing his duties as usual, but then he felt a strong malaise and dizziness. After that, he decided to lean against a wall and take a nap. When Gil opened his eyes, he found himself in Mexico City, more than 10,000 kilometers across the ocean from Manila. Local guards were surprised to see a man in the uniform of a Filipino soldier and decided to interrogate him. When Gil told his story and mentioned that Dasmariñas had been killed, they didn't believe him and detained him. However, after the news of the Manila governor's assassination reached Mexico City, Gil was released and helped to return home. Admittedly, this story is quite astonishing and mysterious. Ufologists believe that Gil was transported such a distance by aliens or unknown advanced civilizations capable of opening spatial portals. However, scientists consider the entire story to be fiction. Peter Faust became one of those people who were once abducted by aliens. For a long time, he didn't tell anyone about what happened, but 25 years after the abduction, he concluded that his silence was only harming himself. Snippets of memories kept emerging in Peter's mind. Initially, he started to fear going outside, and then even staying alone in his house. He continued to think that the aliens would return one day and take him away again. Then Peter decided to see a psychotherapist. After a few sessions, he was able to remember that the aliens first took him onto a small flying saucer and then onto an incredibly large spaceship. They then showed him strange videos and images, after which they took samples of his DNA. According to Peter, the aliens looked almost exactly as people portray them. They had gray skin, a large oval head, and huge black eyes. When the aliens abducted Peter, he was only 8 years old. In his interviews, he confessed that he was very scared during the incident and could not remember exactly how he was abducted or how he returned home. On October 11, 1973, two shipyard workers, 42-year-old Charles Hickson and 19-year-old Calvin Parker, were spending their leisure time fishing on a pier on the Pascagoula River, as usual. Suddenly, they heard a strange noise and then saw an unidentified flying object that was so bright it was hard to look at. When something resembling an alien ship approached the shore, its door opened and 3 beings came towards the 2 men. They were small in stature and had a body similar to that of a human, but they had no eyes or mouth. Instead of noses and ears, they had some sort of appendages. Their hands resembled pincers, and their legs looked as if they were fused together. Charles and Calvin felt completely helpless at the sight of these beings and lost control over their minds and bodies, which made it easy for them to be abducted. According to the men, the 3 beings took them aboard their ship, where a strange round object began to fly around their bodies, seemingly examining the structure of their bodies and internal organs. Charles and Calvin spent about 20 minutes on the ship, after which they were dropped off near the pier where they had been fishing before the incident. Scientists did not believe the men were telling the truth. However, all tests using hypnosis and polygraphs proved they were not lying. Despite this, scientists still claim that this story is nothing more than a fabrication. Vinnie O, a makeup artist from Los Angeles, is quite well known among the alternative youth circles. This guy adores his job and dreams of becoming a genderless extraterrestrial being. For this purpose, Vinnie has already spent over $60,000 and does not plan to stop there. Vinnie voluntarily underwent plastic surgery for the first time at the age of 17, starting with rhinoplasty. Currently, the guy has had more than 100 plastic surgeries. According to Vinnie, he has already achieved the perfect shape of the nose. However, he is still not satisfied with his lips, so he regularly increases their size using special injections. However, the main goal for the guy is to become genderless, which requires the removal of the genitals. There are many known cases of sex change surgeries, but since Vinnie does not want to be either a woman or a man, he needs to completely get rid of his genitals. Experienced surgeons are not willing to undertake such an operation, as the guy would have to live with a catheter for the rest of his life. This fact does not scare Vinnie. He believes that beauty should not have a male or female gender. Of course, this idea might seem unique, but even after such a number of operations, he does not stop looking like a human, albeit a very strange one. On November 5th, 1975, an incident involving a lumberjack named Travis Walton forever changed his life. At 6 p.m., he and his colleagues arrived in the Sitgreaves Forest near Snowflake, Arizona. After some time, they noticed a strange, glowing, disc-shaped object. Travis decided to get a closer look, but as soon as he did, a green beam shot out from the object and struck him, causing him to lose consciousness due to the pain. His colleagues, witnessing this, hurriedly got into their vehicle and quickly called the police. The officers who arrived at the scene found neither the disc-shaped object nor Travis himself, so they arrested the other lumberjacks on suspicion of murder. However, further polygraph tests showed that the missing man's colleagues were telling the truth. 5 days later, Travis regained consciousness near Snowflake. At that point, he remembered absolutely nothing, but over time, memories began to gradually return to him. To fully recall the events, Travis underwent hypnosis sessions. After these, it was revealed that at the moment of his disappearance, Travis found himself in a large room, and upon his screams, 3 humanoids, not taller than 1.5 meters, approached him. Frightened, he ran into another room, resembling a planetarium, and then found himself in a third room. In this room, he encountered a creature in a helmet who ordered him to lie on a couch, after which a mask was placed on Travis's face, and he lost consciousness. He doesn't remember what happened next. Travis believes the aliens realized they had injured him, so they took him aboard their ship to heal him. This story is astonishing. Why would an ordinary lumberjack and his colleagues invent such a tale? Moreover, the polygraph showed that these people were not lying. Dean Lindsay became one of the most ingenious people on our planet. In June 1936, he claimed ownership of all extraterrestrial objects. It sounds really strange, but he was the first person to come up with such an idea. Lindsay approached a Pittsburgh notary with his statement and a significant amount of money to make a deal for the purchase of extraterrestrial objects. This case was simply sensational and attracted public attention. Although his idea was somewhat unique, it had no legal force. Much later, in 1967, an international treaty on outer space was signed. This declaration not only prohibits the use of nuclear weapons, but also defines the basic legal frameworks for outer space. The declaration was signed by 114 countries around the world. In other words, all of space is considered the common heritage of humanity and should be collectively managed by all countries. So now, acquiring all extraterrestrial objects as private property is no longer possible. Marshall Applewhite was born in 1931 in the Texas city of Spur. His father was a Presbyterian minister, so Marshall grew up very religious and dreamed of becoming like his father. In addition, he was passionate about music and was a talented singer with a beautiful baritone voice. After serving in the Army, Marshall earned a Master of Arts in music, then began singing in musicals. He dreamed of a big career, so he moved to New York. However, the city brought him a series of failures, including being accused of homosexual relationships and a divorce from his wife. As a result, he had to move to Houston and then to New Mexico. In 1972, he met a nurse named Bonnie Nettles, who was a member of the Theosophical Society, advocating for universal brotherhood. Her interests in religion and the origins of humanity greatly attracted Marshall. Together, they concluded that they had known each other in a past life and had met again thanks to extraterrestrial intelligence. This idea completely consumed Marshall's mind, and he became the founder of the ufological religious movement, Heaven's Gate. Together with Bonnie, they proclaimed themselves messengers of extraterrestrial races and began looking for like-minded individuals. Their belief was that all followers, after death, would transform into immortal extraterrestrial beings. Surprisingly, they managed to recruit about 50 people, 39 of whom ended their lives in a mass suicide, wishing to embody their souls in extraterrestrial beings. Among them was Marshall himself. The name Ashtar is very well known to ufologists worldwide. Ashtar is referred to as either one or several spiritual beings commanding the cosmic fleet from the Pleiades star cluster. The entity first became known through one of the early leaders of ufological religious movements, George Van Tassel. In 1952, he claimed to have received telepathic messages from a higher cosmic being named Ashtar. Additionally, he achieved access to the universal mind and could communicate not only with Jesus and Ashtar, but also with all deceased humans. Van Tassel even partially revealed the secret of his method, which involved using human abilities in conjunction with extraterrestrial technologies. Nowadays, something similar is called channeling, or the process of receiving information from higher forces of light through clear consciousness by tuning the mind to a specific channel. Van Tassel began to share his abilities and conduct sessions for communicating with extraterrestrial intelligence. In 1959, his gatherings were attended by no less than 11,000 people. Over time, people began to join Tassel's movement and believe in Ashtar. Ashtar's mission was to save humanity and the entire planet Earth. In his messages, he warned about the threat of the hydrogen bomb explosion. On November 26, 1977, an incident associated with this name occurred. That day, the broadcast of Southern television in England was interrupted. Instead of the regular broadcast, people heard a message from Ashtar's cosmic command. In this audio message, the extraterrestrial intelligence urged humanity to give up weapons to achieve a new stage in evolution. Over time, the number of followers of the Ashtar movement constantly increased. New future predictions appeared, but after none of them came true, the number of people believing in this entity, on the contrary, became fewer and fewer, although channeling sessions remain popular to this day. Claude Maurice Marcel Vorilhon, better known by his pseudonym Raël, was born in 1946 in the French city of Vichy. As a teenager, he was very passionate about music and quickly became a rising star on Parisian radio. In addition, Maurice dreamed of becoming a race car driver. To get closer to his dream, he began a career as a sports journalist and then opened his own publishing company. It seemed Maurice was living an ordinary life, but everything changed on December 13, 1973, when, according to him, he met aliens. However, they did not look like the aliens we are used to imagining. They were ordinary people who were engaged in science and were able to discover the greatest mind in themselves. It was they who created all other life on Earth more than 25,000 years ago. These scientists were called Elohim, or those who came from the sky. After this encounter, Maurice began calling himself Raël and proclaimed himself the chosen messenger of our creators. He spoke about how the scientists revealed to him all the mysteries of the world and organized a meeting for him with Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad. Raël began to call on other people to embrace his faith and organized the Raëlian movement, which is considered one of the first UFO religions. The idea of the movement was to cleanse the world of evil and become like our creators. To do this, it was necessary to renounce money, fame, power, and much more. Surprisingly, Raël managed to strengthen his movement to the extent that it counted a huge number of followers in more than 80 countries around the world. And in 2001, it even started acting as a sponsor of human cloning research. Ancient Egypt is often associated with extraterrestrial civilizations. It's hard to believe that people living more than 4,500 years ago could build the Pyramid of Djoser and then all the other pyramids. Many people still believe that ancient pharaohs had contacts with aliens, and perhaps were aliens themselves. Here's one piece of evidence to support this theory. In 1925, a British archaeologist named Howard Carter was conducting excavations in the tomb of the legendary Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun. Inside the sarcophagus, he found not only the ruler's mummy, but also many valuable items, one of which was a dagger. Many experts examined this artifact, but for a long time, they couldn't determine the material from which it was made. Recently, Japanese scientists from Chiba University finally managed to find out. It turns out the material of Tutankhamun's dagger contained the same elements as the Karga meteorite, which was discovered in 2000 near Alexandria. Likely, the dagger was made from its fragments. However, how the ancient Egyptians knew the technology to make weapons from meteoritic material remains unknown. One of the most famous cases in the history of ufology is the abduction story of Betty and Barney Hill. It all happened on September 19, 1961. Late in the evening, the couple was returning home from a vacation in Montreal in their car. South of Lancaster, Betty noticed a strange glowing object in the sky. At first, she took it for a falling star. But then she saw that the object was moving up, not down. Betty suggested they stop and observe the glowing sphere through binoculars. Barney reassured her, saying it was just a plane. After a while, the Hills noticed that the strange object seemed to be following them and gradually became larger in size. Then it came very close to Betty and Barney's car, after which they heard a strange sound and realized that it was not a sphere, but an alien flying saucer. What happened next, they do not remember. 2 hours later, they woke up in their car and tried to return home as quickly as possible. For a long time, the couple suffered from headaches and nightmares, after which they sought the help of a psychotherapist. During a session using hypnosis, it was discovered that they had been abducted by aliens aboard a spacecraft. For 2 hours, the aliens interacted with the couple, showing them a certain star map and telling them where they came from. Before returning the Hills back, the aliens collected samples of their skin, hair, and nails. This story was met with criticism, but ufologists still consider it direct evidence of the existence of extraterrestrial races. Pharaoh Akhenaten, also known as Amenhotep IV, ruled Egypt from 1365 to 1349 BCE. Akhenaten is considered the most mysterious of all pharaohs. Looking at sculptures of Akhenaten, one can notice that he had an atypical appearance compared to other pharaohs. He did not resemble a stern, strong, and powerful man. Instead, he had a soft gaze, notable thinness, round feminine hips, and an elongated face shape. It is unknown whether Akhenaten actually had such an androgynous appearance or only wanted to be depicted in the image of a person combining both male and female characteristics simultaneously. Akhenaten was known as one of the most influential religious innovators in human history. He transformed Egypt into a monotheistic society, abandoning the worship of multiple gods. The only god for Akhenaten was Aten, or the sun disk. In its honor, he built the city of Amarna. Most astonishingly, Akhenaten described his connection with celestial beings and considered himself one of them. Moreover, recent scientific research has shown that this pharaoh had several genetic mutations. Ufologists believe that he was subjected to experiments conducted by aliens. Ancient Egypt was shrouded in mysteries that remain unsolved to this day. Therefore, it is unknown whether Akhenaten was indeed just a human or perhaps an alien. Billy Meyer was born in 1937. He grew up as a normal child, but when he was 5 years old, he was visited by aliens. As a child, he didn't pay much attention to it, but as a teenager, his contacts with an extraterrestrial race became more frequent, and he began to focus on his own spiritual development and collect information about aliens. Billy first announced his communication with aliens in the 1970s. He said these beings call themselves Plejaren. They are very similar to humans, as we once shared common ancestors. The world of Plejaren is called Era. It is located in a dimension that is part of another space-time structure, shifted from ours by a fraction of a second, 80 light-years away from the Pleiades star cluster. To confirm the truth of his words, Meyer presented a whole series of photographs which depicted the beam ships of the Plejaren. In addition, his collection included photos of celestial objects from space, and even photographs of prehistoric Earth and its complete destruction in the future. Meyer claimed that the Plejaren not only allowed him to take photos of their ships, but also helped him travel through time and space. During such journeys, he took all his photos. Despite a vast amount of evidence of the existence of aliens, most people did not believe him, particularly influenced by his ex-wife who, after their divorce, accused Meyer of fraud and faking the photos. Boris Kiririnovich was born in the Russian city of Volgograd in 1996. From infancy, he began to astonish his parents with his abilities. At 4 months, the boy started to speak, and by the age of 1.5, he could already read and draw. This seems strange, but even more astonishing were the things the child talked and drew about. Boris told his parents about his life on Mars and illustrated this with images of space. According to him, in his past life, he was a pilot of a spacecraft and often visited Earth. This was a long time ago when the continent of Lemuria existed on our planet. In Lemuria, there lived a person with whom the Martian was closely friends, but one day a natural disaster occurred, and the continent was completely submerged underwater. All its inhabitants died. Boris also mentioned that a nuclear war took place on Mars. This event led to the mass death of Martians, however. Some of them managed to survive, and they relocated from their planet to ours, and now live deep underground because our air causes aging. Some of the Martians were reborn as human children, just like Boris. Their current goal is to warn humanity of the same mistake made by the inhabitants of Mars and to prevent a nuclear war. The story of Boris Kiririnovich seems like a fabrication, but the young boy really knew a lot about space and ancient civilizations, sometimes even things that scientists did not know. How Boris's life turned out afterwards is unknown. Perhaps he simply decided to stay away from the media and lives an ordinary life. Alex Collier can be called a chosen one, as he managed to establish constant contact with aliens. According to Alex, he communicates with beings from the Andromeda Galaxy. The aliens independently initiated contact with him when he was a child. Since then, they continue to maintain contact with him. The only break in communication with his friends was during Alex's military service. Apparently, the aliens were afraid of being noticed at that time. In 1985, they even invited Alex onto their spaceship. After this incident, the man began to give many interviews to the press and television channels. He said that the inhabitants of Andromeda look very similar to humans, except that their skin tone varies from blue to green, and their minimum height exceeds 2 meters. During the meeting on the ship, the aliens revealed many secrets of space and humanity that are still unknown to science. Of course, Alex did not share them with other people, but he did reveal something. It turns out, the inhabitants of Andromeda know that there are an incredible number of different races in our universe, visually similar to humans. All of them originated long ago in the constellation of Lyra, but after a large-scale war, they were forced to disperse to different galaxies. Well, maybe that's how it really was, but it's unclear why only humans have not learned to travel among galaxies and communicate with their inhabitants as extraterrestrial civilizations do. The photo you are now seeing was published by a former U.S. intelligence officer who preferred to remain anonymous. This photograph captures a humanoid creature with a rather repulsive appearance. According to the photo's author, this creature independently appeared on the territory of one of the secret bases. It claimed to have traveled a vast distance from a very distant galaxy to warn humanity about a serious danger. According to the humanoid, the events occurring in our world are leading to the beginning of a third world war, which, unlike previous wars, would be the last for our planet. Therefore, it asked intelligence officers to address all people to permanently destroy any weapons they possess. Of course, this meeting remained classified, and even if intelligence officers had conveyed the aliens' message to the entire world, the weapons would still not have been destroyed. This thought is very troubling, as the alien was right. Just imagine how much better and more peaceful our lives would be if weapons had never existed. Ninakulagina was one of the most famous women in the Soviet Union who possessed extrasensory abilities. Her name attracted public interest in the 1960s, thanks to black and white films that showcased her unusual skills. The films depicted how Nina could move objects with her mind, scatter laser beams, and affect the internal organs of animals. She claimed to have inherited her abilities from her mother. Naturally, such incredible capabilities of an ordinary person became a sensation. Many scientific institutes, not only in the Soviet Union but all over the world, studied her body. Some even believed she was a representative of an unexplored extraterrestrial race. After some time, skeptics accused Nina of conspiring with Soviet scientists. However, to this day, it remains unknown whether this is true, as there are indeed people in the world with supernatural abilities, and this woman might have been one of them. The story of the man from Taured is one of the main pieces of evidence for the existence of aliens for ufologists. This man gained worldwide fame after an incident at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. In July 1954, a suspicious passenger was detained at this airport. His passport was issued by the state of Taured. Have you ever heard such a name? Neither had the airport staff. However, the man continued to claim that this was his third visit to Tokyo from Taured on a business trip. After lengthy disputes, this passenger was detained by Japanese police officers. But even after that, he did not understand why people did not know about his country. According to the man, Taured had existed for over 1,000 years. When the police asked him to show on a world map where this state was located, he pointed to the place where Andorra is located today. The cops did not know what to do with the detainee, so they placed him in a hotel room with additional security while all the circumstances were being clarified. However, the next day, this man disappeared along with all his documents issued in Taured. Who this man really was remains a mystery. Some people believe he was an alien or a time traveler, while others are sure that this story is just an urban legend. And that's all from me. If you liked this video, don't forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Your activity is the best reward for me. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Goodbye.